whoever is providing that, the Federated Data Platform is a really good initiative which helps to improve efficiency, helps to get people treated quicker, helps us get better value for money from the NHS. So the Federated Data Platform is a good thing. The question about who delivers that service is separate. Palantir have the contract. There is a review of that contract ongoing, and that's ahead of a break clause next year. And it's right that I let that review play out, which limits what else I can say about it because it's a contractual process. But that is a contractual arrangement with Palantir, which is separate from the importance of the Federated Data Platform, which I think is really important for improving the efficiency and value for money in the NHS.
Well, it's been actually a relatively calm week at Westminster, partly, of course, because of the torpor of a hot summer, but largely because a slow-motion presidential-style transfer of power is underway. A transition team led by the former Cabinet Minister James Purnell, Andy Burnham's new Chief of Staff, and Lou Hay, a close ally of the MP for Makerfield, is preparing to take the keys to number 10 in just over 2 weeks' time. Behind the scenes, as you'd expect, there's much jostling for position as ministers and advisers try to find themselves close to the next centre of power. And for journalists and the public, attempts to figure out the Prime Minister in waiting as to what are Andy Burnham's plans. So far, he's been pretty vague about all of that. Well, still it seems the transition is going on, what many people might call a grown-up handover of power. In Keir Starmer's own words, he recognises that this is the end of his political career. We can go straight now to the Health Secretary, James Murray MP. Hello to you.
Hi, good morning.
You are talking this morning about the use of AI to improve service to the public in the health service. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I think that AI can play a really important role in making the NHS work better and work better for patients and for NHS staff on the front line. And so as part of the investment, which was agreed in the spending review last year, we've been prioritising those AI investments that really help patients and NHS staff on the front line. And one of my roles as Secretary of State for Health is to make sure that this is spread out right across the country so that local people in every area can benefit from the changes we're making.
And what are these benefits through AI? How's it going to work?
Well, let me give you a couple of examples. One of the tools is an AI note-taking tool. Now, that sounds like a small thing, but actually the impact can be huge because if you have an AI microphone, which is then helping the clinician to take notes rather than the clinician having to sit down at their computer and type away, it can save a clinician around 47 minutes on average per shift. That helps them to see more patients, spend more of their time talking to patients, helping patients directly, and so can help make the health service better in terms of its capacity. And if you just think of what this could mean across the country, one of the studies which has been done shows that if we had this technology, this AI note-taking technology in emergency departments across the country, that could mean 9,000 extra A&E consultations every day, which is about 3.4 million a year. And to put it in context, there's about 28 million attendances at A&E. So 3.4 million more a year would be a really big change as a result of this technology, and it would make life better for patients accessing the NHS.
You say you want to put this out across the country, but I noticed that almost all the experimental areas that have been chosen, except for one in Manchester, the rest of them are in London and the South East. So this is hardly levelling around, is it?
Oh no, the pilots have been in particular hospitals where we've
in the South East
tested out the technology to make sure it works. But the rollout is right across England.
But as I understand it, what you're announcing today is the pilots rather than the rollout, yeah?
No, we're announcing the rollout. So that the pilots have happened. This is about rolling it out across the country. This is about rolling out the AI note-taking technology I mentioned. It will be available nationwide by 2028. Because I want to make sure that local people in every part of the country can benefit from it. And that's been one of my focuses as Health Secretary, because you can have big technology programs, but if political leaders and NHS bosses just sit back, it won't spread as quickly and effectively right across the country. It needs to be pushed, it needs to be carefully driven, we need to work with local NHS leaders across the country to make sure that people in every local area can benefit from this new technology.
And is this going to happen whether or not you are the Health Secretary in a couple of weeks' time?
Well, look, the funding for the technological investment was agreed in the spending review, so that funding was already secured last year. This is about making sure that it's spent effectively and quickly, and that we focus on those technologies which make the biggest difference to patients on the front lines. And I know that the AI note-taking I spoke about, as well as the AI triage tool, which would be integrated with the NHS app, helping people to get quicker advice about what to do and get directed to clinicians if that's appropriate. Those kind of technological changes are the ones that make the biggest difference to people's lives directly.
Yep.
And so they're the ones that I've been really keen to make sure spread right across the country.
I mean, I understand that, and I also understand that you took over in difficult circumstances with the departure of Wes Streeting. I just wonder, in the limited time that you've had, barely a month, whether you think you've been able to make any personal difference to health provision in this country.
I think I've made a difference in terms of, for instance, ending the resident doctors' strikes, which were causing so much damage to the NHS and so much extra cost for the NHS. I spent a lot of time talking to affected families in Nottingham about the maternity services failures there. I felt that was a really important thing for me to do as Health Secretary. I've also taken the decision to have a meningitis B vaccination programme over summer for young people going to university. So there were some really important decisions, really important issues which needed to be addressed urgently over the last couple of months since I was appointed Health Secretary. And although there's plenty of speculation and I can see that in my peripheral vision, I've made sure that my focus is on what matters to people across the country when it comes to the NHS.
What did you bring to the resident doctors dispute that Wes Streeting was unable to? I mean, how did you clinch the deal?
Well, look, I know Wes did a lot of work to try and get a deal with the resident doctors when he was Secretary of State of Health. Me coming in to this role builds on all of the work that Wes did right across the portfolio, right across the NHS to improve services. What we did with the resident doctors was to put an offer on the table that was a very good offer. That was one that I thought offered.
So you gave them more
not
money.
Just pay progression. Well, no, there's no more money offered this year. And just to be clear, the cost of the deal this year is less than the cost of one more week of strikes. So it was better for the taxpayers, better for resident doctors, better for all NHS staff, because otherwise other NHS staff have to step up and cover the NHS when resident doctors are on strike. But most importantly, good news for patients, because it means that we as the government can work with resident doctors and everyone in the NHS to really deliver on what we promised to do, which is to make the NHS better, stronger, and service the needs of people across the country.
Now, on the question of your new AI initiative, which, as I understand it, is sort of automatically compiling reports on patients who've been spoken to, compiling their notes, is the company Palantir involved in any way?
So this is very different than the contract which Palantir are involved with. Palantir are involved in delivering a program called the Federated Data Platform. The Federated Data Platform is a really important initiative which helps to make sure that, for instance, hospital operating theatres are better utilised, that people get cancer treatment quicker. It's a really important tool for speeding up efficiency in the NHS. Palantir have a contract to deliver that, and their contract has a break clause next year. Now, that contract is being reviewed, as would be expected, ahead of the break clause. That process is happening at the moment, which limits what obviously I can say because it's a contractual process, but that will be looking at Palantir's role ahead of that break clause next year.
But presumably this is about handling data and you want more efficient note-taking of meetings, and that presumably would feed into this federated system. I mean, otherwise there'd be no point.
No, we're talking about different technologies and different providers.
Well, why not
here.
integrate
and let me just
them?
say this: that let me just say this: that what I want to see happen is I want to see more British firms bidding for and winning NHS contracts. I think that is good for trust in the system. I think it's good for our AI and tech sovereignty as a country, and I also think it's good for jobs and growth in Britain. So I want to see more British firms bidding for and winning those contracts.
And by your interpretation, Palantir, which has a substantial presence and employment base in this country, and a British chief executive in this country, is not a British company. Would that be right?
Well, as I said, Palantir is a subject of a review ahead of the
I understand that.
contractual breakpoint.
You just said you want more
April.
British companies. Does that exclude Palantir or not?
As I'm not going to get into commenting about Palantir's contract because there's a contractual process, and it's right that the review runs its course ahead of the break clause next year. What I'm clear about is my broader approach to companies that are involved in delivering technological improvements in the NHS, and I think that focus on British companies is good for our sovereignty, it's good for jobs and growth, and it's good for people's trust in the system.
But as I understand it, what Palantir has done so far has greatly improved efficiency in the NHS. They are a world leader in data handling. Are you seriously saying that you'd be prepared to drop that just to put a untried British firm in place?
Well, let me separate out the two halves of the argument you just put there. On the one hand, we've got the Federated Data Platform, which is the service that Palantir provide. Now, whoever is providing that, the Federated Data Platform is a really good initiative which helps to improve efficiency, helps to get people treated quicker, helps us get better value for money from the NHS. So the Federated Data Platform is a good thing. The question about who delivers that service is separate. Palantir have the contract. There is a review of that contract ongoing, and that's ahead of a break clause next year. And it's right that I let that review play out, which limits what else I can say about it because it's a contractual process. But that is a contractual arrangement with Palantir, which is separate from the importance of the Federated Data Platform, which I think is really important for improving the efficiency and value for money in the NHS.
Do you think you will be taking that decision at the break clause next year, or still in your job?
That's a decision for the new Prime Minister, for Andy Burnham.
Okay, I just want to put to you, the Mail on Sunday today has included you in a list of ministers who it says are shy about their private school education. Are you shy about your private school education?
No, I'm very matter-of-fact about it.
Are you proud of it?
I'm just very matter-of-fact about it. It's what happened when I was growing up, and if asked, I'll answer questions about it. I'll talk about
but you haven't tried to sort of take it out of your official biography or anything like that?
Well, I think it's there on my Wikipedia. It's something I've spoken about to journalists in the past, so I'm just very matter-of-fact about it.
And as someone who went to a private school, do you think that there has been a degree of class envy from this government in the policies, particularly on VAT on private schools, which I think it's now demonstrable have led to the closure of a number of schools and the withdrawal of a large number of pupils for no gain in the state system?
I fundamentally reject the premise of your question there, because you said for no gain in the state system. That's wrong.
Well, there haven't been more teachers, as were promised. The number of teachers has gone down, and class sizes have increased. That doesn't sound like a gain to me.
The reason why we took that decision to apply VAT to private school fees is to make sure that we can get that contribution to the public finances, including to schools, and it's right that those with the broader shoulders pay their fair share. That's why we took that decision around VAT on private schools. I was involved with that when I was a minister at the Treasury. I think it was the right decision to take, to apply VAT to private school fees, making an important contribution to public services, to support all of our public services, including our schools.
Yeah, but it hasn't, has it? Because actually there haven't been more teachers and there have been more children in the state system, so that's actually increased the burden rather than improved it.
No, the funding which we have gained through applying VAT to private school fees is there for all to see in the budget documents and in the OBR documents alongside that. It's been a policy which has been effective at raising a substantial amount of money in a fair way, asking those with broader shoulders to contribute more, and that's helped support our education system as well as wider public services.
OK, just finally, Nigel Farage, new revelations about, certainly in the year before him becoming an MP, receiving favours or supporting kind from someone known as Posh George Cottrell, I don't know what you call him, a tech entrepreneur or something. Do you think there should be a public inquiry or Commons inquiry into that?
Well, look, I've only just seen the details overnight, but I think there are some very serious questions for Nigel Farage to answer here. And I think, this is a pattern. You can see this again and again. There are more and more deeper, concerning questions raised about Nigel Farage's relationship with money, with donors, his flexible relationship with transparency, to put it mildly. And I think he needs to answer those questions.
James Murray, thank you very much indeed for joining us, our Health Secretary there.